Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor for me to be able to talk to you on this virtual event today. The fact that we are gathering virtually highlights the reality of this year, which is completely new to all of us. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we all have had to learn new ways of working, studying, and doing business, and new ways of maintaining and building relationships. I represent Finnair, whose business is to connect Europe and Asia via the short northern route via our hub in Helsinki, Finland. Finnair is one of the oldest continuously operating airlines in the world, and in the normal situation, many of the participants of this conference most likely would have flown with us via Helsinki to Korea. We have had daily flights to Seoul for a long time, and last spring we were preparing to open as the first European airline a direct service to Busan in Korea. So in early 2020, marketing of this new Busan route was in full speed. We had worked with the Korean tourism organization in introducing Busan as a destination to European travel media, for example. We had all our partners lined up, and our travel agents were selling the new direct connection between Busan and Europe. On the operational side of things, we had carefully planned calculations for aircraft performance, and Finnair pilots also had planned how to land and take off the Airbus 350 aircraft in the mountainous terrain of Kimhae International Airport. All of these plans were disrupted by the pandemic, as so many other growth plans in the commercial aviation worldwide. It has been estimated that the recovery of commercial aviation to the 2019 levels will be taking approximately 3 years. So let us just take a moment to reflect this. The lockdown started during the spring this year. We at Finnair, as so many other airlines, we ramped down our whole global network in a matter of 2 weeks, trying to get our customers home before we ceased most of the operation. From April to June, during the second quarter, we operated only a minimum network of domestic and European flights, keeping our home country of Finland connected to the key European cities. However, during the Q2, it soon became very clear that even if people stay at home, goods will need to move. Europe and Asia are connected in so many ways, and this includes also continuous flow of goods between the continents. In a normal situation, much of these goods fly as a belly cargo in the numerous passenger flights between Europe and Asia. But during the pandemic, all of those flights were brought to a halt. For us at Finnair, this meant that we needed to ramp up our cargo-only flights between Helsinki and key Asian cities, including Seoul. We transported personal protective equipment, medical supplies, components, and many other essential air freight that are needed to keep the societies going during the pandemic. For example, our cargo included coronavirus tests that were flown from Finland to the advanced testing facilities in Seoul. And that was before Finland was ramping up the testing capability domestically. All in all, during this time, we have flown hundreds of cargo-only flights between Europe and Asia. This basically goes to show how tightly the national economies in Asia and Europe are connected. No country can or should cope on its own in global economy, even during these exceptional times. So in July, we started to ramp up our operations and we reopened our passenger flights between Asia and Europe, but with very limited frequencies. We currently operate around 15% of our capacity, and we certainly hope to be able to increase flying towards some sort of normality during the next summer season. But I say that we hope to increase flying because probably the most significant change the COVID-19 pandemic has brought on us in commercial aviation is the extreme uncertainty of the market environment. The questions are multiple. When there will be a vaccine? Will it work? How will the travel restrictions in various countries develop? When will people start traveling normally? Will customer behavior change for good? All of these questions play a major role in how aviation recovers, and we are currently in search for answers. For us as airlines, this means extensive scenario planning and basically preparing for all possible alternative outcomes. Many of the tools and processes that we normally use to run our business are now rendered useless in this environment. And we all have had to learn new and agile ways of working to navigate this unpredictable environment. The silver lining of this is that this certainly has provided a lot of opportunity for our people to learn and grow personally as professionals. The road to recovery for commercial aviation will be a long one. So what does this mean for societies and for all of us as individuals? It is worthwhile to note that aviation brings a great deal of social and economic benefits for the societies and communities it serves. Air connections have a direct contribution to the economic viability and development of regions. Companies who want to do business outside their home markets simply need air connections. Let's not forget tourism. Right now, many countries have to make do with domestic tourism only, as travel restrictions effectively limit international tourism to a great extent. But international tourism is definitely not something to be pushed aside. Tourism is a vibrant and growing industry that enables jobs for more than 100 million people worldwide. More than 100 million people worldwide. And if we take into account indirect employment related to tourism, the total would be over 300 million jobs. And before the pandemic, 1 in 4 new jobs worldwide was created in tourism, in travel industry. When international travel was brought to a halt, we saw the financial implications of not flying, of not having movements of goods and people between countries and continents. It is clear that this situation has impacted the aviation industry, the travel industry, a lot, but it has also impacted companies and economies at large. At the same time, the pandemic has forced us to learn new things. When physical contact has been limited during the pandemic months, we all have had to learn new ways of doing business and maintaining connections. We have taken digital leaps on many fronts. In Finland, for example, children went into distant learning in just 1 week, and regular classrooms were transformed into Google classrooms. Due to the pandemic, we needed to cancel flights of approximately 1 million people. And in order to handle the refunds of those flight cancellations, we developed software robots. We increased our digital customer communications, as all of the sudden there was so much new information to be communicated to our customers, ranging from new travel restrictions to new health and safety measures on board. Customers needed this information, and in a situation where things change rapidly, digital was the only way to go. Many of the digital learnings we have gained during this year are here to stay, and that is good. Digitalization brings great value. It can enhance the communications, improve the efficiency, and most of all, it can improve the customer experience a great deal. Once we have seen this value, there is simply no going back. But it is also very clear that virtual connections cannot replace the real, authentic, and personal connections we as human beings we need. We need to get to know each other. We need to learn from each other. We need to build relationships, and we need to expand our understanding of the world. The pandemic has truly shown that we live in a very connected world. This human need to connect, to understand, and to build relationships is the reason why I believe that aviation will recover. People need people. The deals are closed when we know and trust our partners. New ideas come to life when people truly get together. Our understanding of the world grows when we see how other people live, how they work, and how they play. Ultimately, we need human understanding and human connections to maintain peace and prosperity in the world. And this goes back to the whole purpose of aviation as articulated in the Chicago Convention already back in 1944. Aviation's recovery will take place most likely in phases. Domestic traffic is the first one to recover, followed by short-haul traffic, and then by long-haul traffic. And this process is already ongoing. According to research recently made by IATA, more than 95% of traveling audience expect to travel again within the next 12 to 18 months. So there is a lot of willingness to travel. There is the underlying need to travel. Airlines and airports have put in place comprehensive measures to ensure customers and staff's health and safety also during this pandemic. This includes the use of masks on board and at the airport, minimizing the unnecessary contact during the journey, and intensified cleansing of aircrafts, and the communication of all of these measures to customers. Responsible travel is a new dub word, and responsible travel has taken a whole new meaning. Today, it also includes protecting oneself and those around us from the virus and following the guidelines given by the authorities. Different countries have different guidelines on travel, and while that is understandable to some extent, it is also painfully clear that it is making traveling these days very, very complicated. And therefore, I believe that I speak for the whole of aviation industry and for the whole of travel industry, for that matter, when I see that we need common and harmonized travel standards, and we need simple testing regimes based on rapid testing going forward. That is the only way for aviation to start to recover, and the only way to really move the needle in terms of increasing the number of passengers during. International travel, as stated, comes with many economic and social benefits, and we must find the right balance that allows the benefits of travel to continue while we take care of the health and safety of the passengers and of the health and safety of public at large. And perhaps ultimately, aviation will recover when there is a working vaccine that is relatively widely distributed, or when there is a working medication that is widely in use. So, how will aviation look like after the pandemic? The saying goes that you cannot step into the same river twice. So that means that the post-pandemic aviation will be very different than the pre-pandemic aviation. We think that the growth in aviation will moderate going forward. We have seen during the past decade, we have seen rapid growth of aviation industry, and we think that the growth rate will be more moderate going forward. Predominantly because the industry has very limited investment capability for several years to come due to the financial toll of the pandemic. To manage the financial burden the pandemic has placed on the industry, airlines will simply need to shed costs, they will need to restructure, and they will need to streamline their operations. For the time being, the focus at any given airline in the world is in survival. And soon enough, it will be in rebuilding the operations. The rebuild efforts will need to focus on what is most important for the customers and to the societies that we serve. The pandemic has put the environmental aspects of flying on the side for a while, but the focus on reducing the carbon footprint of aviation will come back swinging after the pandemic. At the same time, it is likely that also customers will be different after the pandemic when this traveling starts again. Our hypothesis is that safety, quality of service, and reliability will be taking a center stage when customers choose their airline in the future. Many of the health and safety measures that have been taken into use during the pandemic are here to stay. During the pandemic, we have also invested heavily, as stated, on customer communications and across all of the touch points of customers' journey. And this will also stay in the future. Digital channels are keeping customers connected with the airline throughout their journey. We may also see changes in the relative attractiveness of different destinations. It may be that in the future, clean air and pure nature will be very attractive to many tourists, will be more attractive than bustling cities and bustling street life. And this, in turn, may impact the networks and the frequencies that different airlines operate. In the middle of all of these changes, there are things that also will not change. The focus on reducing the carbon footprint of aviation, addressing the climate change, is one of those examples, as I mentioned. And aviation also has a lot of work to be done before we are carbon neutral. The laws of the physics are against us, and the toolbox to be used is including a wide range of individual levers. Another thing that does not change is the need to connect with other people, be that for business or be that for social purpose. As stated, people need people. And that is why I believe aviation will recover. And aviation has the power to make the world larger for us, expand our understanding of the world, and also bring the world together. And this is also something that will be needed after the pandemic. Thank you very much for listening.